fantasy football. Jacksonville is bad, folks. Don't let that Buffalo game fool you. Arnold was wanted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the offseason, but instead signed with the Carolina Panthers. Urban Meyer has stated he wants to use the tight end, and the past 2 weeks have been proof of that. With a lot of negative game scripts likely in his future, Dan Arnold is a fringe tight end one the rest of the way. Coming in at number 4 for me in my Week 10 waiver wire targets, DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. And now you're looking at this, a 12% rostered wide receiver. In his last 3 games, Donovan Peoples-Jones has averaged 18.2 PPR fantasy points. That would rank him 8th in points per game if he projected that out for the whole season. Will this continue for the rest of the season? Yeah, most likely not, but he will have every chance to prove himself with Odell Beckham Jr. now out of the picture in Cleveland. The second-year pro out of Michigan has built a quick rapport with Baker Mayfield when he is on the field. Add DPJ to your bench and monitor his snap count and targets in Week 10, because with Detroit, Baltimore, and Las Vegas on the schedule in weeks to come, we could be looking at a wide receiver that provides wide receiver 3 production with a ceiling for much, much higher production along the way. Coming in at number 3 on my Week 10 waiver wire targets, well, it's a guy I laughed at Nick about starting in one of his leagues during our live show on Sunday, which you can check out every Sunday from 11:45 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, right up to kickoff.
I never hear any of this stuff anymore, so I know it. All right. We're jamming here on this Monday. We welcome you into another edition of the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We appreciate you rolling with us. Yahoo is here powering the show. Chris is producing. But most importantly, the trio is back on this Monday. Myself, Loughran, Tera in the house. So say hi to the two of them as they say hi to you in the chat. We appreciate everybody hanging. Start sits heading into Week 10. Don't worry, we have you covered with the waiver wire as well as the stretch run league winners, which was explained to me earlier today. This must be a Loughran creation where it takes like multiple levels of explanation. It's going to pay out in the end, Tera. I promise you.
Nice.
I
This
promise.
was Chris's idea.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know I can come up with some convoluted stuff, but no,
It always works.
This is yeah. We always find an endpoint. It just we take the detour. You know, we take the long road there.
Right.
I would have liked to have left those jams on the entire show. Just keep them on down low, right?
Yeah.
I was
Very good.
into that.
Just thread underneath here, right?
Sick.
Now, look,
Crank them back up, Chris. Let's go.
Absolutely. How's everybody's weekend? Now, last time you and I spoke, Tera, things were a little crazy and volatile in the fantasy world. So hopefully you had a better weekend when it came to everything on Sunday. Loughran as well. You and I really didn't talk much on Sunday, so I don't know how your DFS or betting days went over the weekend, but so far so good, at least as we head into Monday, Tera.
Yes, excellent from a fantasy perspective. DFS, not so much, but I saw that coming because I was sick and I should not have played. I knew that, but I couldn't stop myself, of course. And and so I did so with very little preparation. I was like, I'm just gonna just a little bit, just because you want to just have a little something going, and I just shouldn't have. It didn't go very well, but I knew it was coming, so I didn't get sad or anything. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? You learned your lesson there.
Sound better. That's good.
Yes. Yes.
I somehow broke even in DFS, which makes no sense because this is one of the weirdest weeks I've seen in a very long time. Seriously, you think about this, right? And you've got the Buffalo Bills losing to the Jags. The quarterback, Josh Allen, was by far the worst Josh Allen on the field last night or yesterday. I'm always rooting for the underdog anyway, as long as I have no skin in the game when it comes to this. I mean, they didn't score a single touchdown. Amazingly, neither did Jacksonville. And and they won that game. The Cowboys were down 30-0 at home at one point. Atlanta beat the Saints in the Superdome. There was more, right? Oh, yeah. How about Arizona without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins?
Crushed them.
Yes.
Crushed the San Francisco 49ers, who got George Kittle back, played a solid game. We'll talk about him later. And I no joke, I'm pretty sure I'm missing other spots that.
Yeah, the Eagles almost ran it 40 times again for the second straight week. That's even more reason.
They have a 72% run play percentage over the last 2 weeks. There's that. Oh, and the Titans without Derrick Henry shit on the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Thank God I watched the Yellowstone 2-hour premiere over that game. I made the right decision.
Oh, and nearly perfect Baker Mayfield.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, I should have watched Yellowstone as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't have buried myself in live bets on the Rams.
Awesome.
And I didn't. You don't lose money when you watch Yellowstone.
Oh no! Yeah, no. I still lost money. Yeah, okay. Sure I did. I just didn't watch as I lost money.
Fair enough. All right.
That was a tough Sunday Night Football slate for showdowns.
It was difficult, I imagine, across the board. Now we have tonight still hanging over, and I'm sure there are a couple of people that are either waiting on one player to make the difference or hoping that a player doesn't make the biggest difference. I mean, I'm down 22 points or up 22 points, and Chase Claypool is left. So we've reached that point, of week 9 where it's closing down and not necessarily a shootout anticipating by any means between the Bears and the Steelers. But let's look back as we do kind of recap week 9 here and talk about those who made the week work, the MVPs, and of course the MFPs, most frustrating player as well. All right, Lofty, why don't you kick things off, Tara, as well, and then I'll round out on the most valuable player of the weekend.
All right, so I'm starting off with MVP, right? I think you're going to like this.
Was it that bad of a weekend that you wanted to start off with the
MVP? Yeah, because I have a litany of players. I think you're going to like this, though. By the way, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. I'm going with Devontae Smith, and here's why. First of all, do you know he was the wide receiver 2 this week? Wide receiver 2. You know who the wide receiver 1 was this week? Anyone? Take a guess.
Well, I can tell you it wasn't Cooper Kupp or Mike Williams.
No, it wasn't.
Elijah
Moore.
Elijah Moore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wow, from Thursday.
So 2 rookies up top. The reason I think Devontae Smith is the MVP this week is because you're seeing that if this guy ends up getting good quality targets, he's going to be electric. I mean, he was targeted 6 times, at 5 for 115 and a score. A beautiful touchdown, lunged towards the end zone. You're seeing this guy's wise beyond his years, high football IQ. And listen, forget about everything in the background here. Eytan knows I am a huge time Philadelphia pessimist. I'll call it a realist, right? Like I'm not usually stoked about this team, and I'm still not because I don't think Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts from a fantasy standpoint is going to kill us going forward, but we'll get into that later. Devontae Smith was so far open every time he was targeted that if they threw more than 17 times, this guy is going to have a monstrous game, and he already had a huge game. I love what I'm seeing from him. If they find ways to just get him the ball, I love it. The only problem is the passing volume is so low. Hurts has thrown 31 times over the last 2 weeks. They're running at a 72% clip. It's concerning. But yesterday, I think Devontae Smith was good enough to consider him my MVP of the week. And I already know Tara's going with the best one we have. So I couldn't go with that.
I did. I wanted to go with not the best one, but I feel like swing for the fences in terms of the MVP because James Conner swung for the fences. So, I mean, and I wanted to pick him especially because I had very little faith in this man. I'm not going to lie. I did not think that there was any realistic way that he could keep it up all season long. But apparently I was wrong. And we are getting James Conner, that vintage James Conner from 2018, where we saw him be able to have, the vast majority of the season, except for one little portion while he was injured, where he was giving you 100+ yards a game, multiple touchdowns a game, looking like that guy that, I got to watch a lot in college because I'm a sad ACC fan and watched a ton of James Conner. And he's always been a fantastic workhorse back. And I think now that unfortunately Chase Edmonds is going down, we're going to get the chance to see it because he went 21 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And that's just on the ground. He went 5 of 5 through the air, 77 yards, 1 touchdown through the air. Crazy. I mean, it got to a point where you were just asking yourself, can he really score more points? Is this even possible? We always felt like there was talent there with James Conner, and there was just so many injuries that kept happening, unfortunate circumstances. And I think we may really get that chance now to see him carry this out through the end of the season. Kind of amazing. What a fantastic performance from him.
I love it. Lofty, you're muted.
He was phenomenal. I mean, listen to this. James Conner is scoring on average every 11 rushing attempts. That's absurd.
Wild.
Now you have Edmonds with a high ankle sprain, likely out, several weeks.
At least.
James Conner takes over as the lead back. He's now going to be a threat in the passing game. Don't forget, James Conner is not an awful pass catching back. It's just there's no reason to utilize him in the passing game if you have a better pass catching back in Chase Edmonds, right? So, like you even saw that with Derrick Henry. When they want to use him there, he's not bad. But now this is going to be insanely voluminous role for Conner. He's already someone that leads the league in goal line touchdowns with 6, 7 touchdowns inside the 7. Unless you look towards Eno Benjamin more, which sure he'll spell James Conner. James Conner is going to be, even if he's not super efficient, he's going to be in one of those roles where I see it like a Devontae Booker, who I've been talking up every week since Barkley's been out, because is he great? No, he's not great, but he's on the field for 90+% of the game. And that's all I care about. As long as you're getting to work, give me all you got. And James Conner is going to be that guy. He's going to help a lot of people over the coming weeks.
We have a super chat here. Overcome. Want to hit that and also hit the thumbs up. As Lofty mentioned, if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We'll tell you about these great links below with Yahoo. I'll round out the MVP before we get to the super chat. And yeah, it's a chalk play, but first time all season that Nick Chubb has hit 30 points. And that comes where he misses 2 games, tight game that they lose against Pittsburgh. People thinking, all right, what's going on? Odell Beckham's gone. Nobody has any faith in Baker Mayfield. This offense could be going to shit. And here comes Nick Chubb with his cape and his costume, and he saves the day, 30+ points. Helped me out at least this week, so he's my MVP. And that's simple. That's straightforward. I don't think that needs much of a breakdown. It was just nice to see the bounce back if there was any concern with Chubb. Now, no concern about him losing any workload, clearly, as we await for that backfield to get healthier. But Overcome on the super chat, Sanders going to lose his workload. Look, I don't know what the hell to expect. I can't tell you who's going to run the football each week when they're healthy, let alone who's going to run the football when they come back from injury. I mean, it would stand to reason that, yeah, Jordan Howard has played exceptionally well. Kenny Gainwell is there, and they do like Boston Scott. Honestly, and Lofty will tell you, Tara, I watch this team as much as he does. We talk about this team each and every day in Philadelphia. I have no bleeping clue how to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most perplexing things that I've seen. They are truly committed to the run now that Miles Sanders is not involved. And they've committed to it with Jordan Howard. 17 carries, 71 yards, 1 touchdown. Absolutely wild. I don't think his job is in threat, but I do think that we're going to probably see a continuation of a committee. And unfortunately, Miles Sanders is not going to, get the great opportunities that he's missed while he's out.
It's a great point, right? And like, I think it begs the question, and this is where I think, just something that Lofty's been talking about from even preseason when we started the channel and started talking about season long here was about Miles Sanders and the clear upside that he has. But I guess, Lofty, to Tara's point and trying to answer this question from Overcome, it begs the question when Sanders comes back, why weren't they running like they have been when Sanders is out? I don't know how that impacts his workload, but it does kind of beg that question as well.
It makes me wonder a couple things. Like, were you trying to evaluate Jalen Hurts? Did you want Jalen Hurts to fail? I know you have this conspiracy theory out there, Eytan.
The end around. That's all for draft picks.
Yeah, right. So I tweeted this not long ago, right? That where is it? So okay. Okay, here it is. I had to find it. The Eagles have run the ball at a 72% clip over the last 2 weeks. It's great for Sirianni if he wants to keep his job past 2021, but it's brutal for Jalen Hurts' fantasy outlook since the Eagles will be able to stay competitive even though he contributes as a rusher. So that I think is true. I really do. Like, if you're not throwing, that hurts. But if you're Miles Sanders, yeah, they're having success on the ground. They would have had success on the ground with Miles Sanders if they stuck to the run game. He's still the best running back on this team, hands down. If anyone wants to pretend that Jordan Howard is a better, more prolific rusher than Miles Sanders after going from practice squad to third string, fourth string backup, you're crazy. It's just not the way it is. We have an excellent run blocking offensive line. I say we, but the Eagles do. So that's where I stand on that. When he comes back, I have zero idea what his involvement is going to be, but I feel bad for him if he gets phased out for some reason or another. I wanted to answer a quick question from Jay Roberts real quick. He says, because Bailey asked the same question, what is James Conner's worth in Dynasty if you're trying to move him? Great question. Here's my answer. I'm curious to hear what Tara has to say too. And this might shock you. I think he's immensely valuable if you're trading him to a contender. Let's say you're trading him to a team that just lost Derrick Henry, okay? Or you're trading him to a team that has a good squad in contention, maybe not a ton of shelf life left on some of their best players. Like, I have a league I've talked about a lot where I have a lot of great running backs and receivers, but not all of them have a ton of time left. That would be a team where you say, you know what, I can still win this year, but I need one additional piece. James Conner could be that guy. You're not trading him to a rebuilding team unless they're dumb, in which case maybe you could. But yeah, I think you could get a first for James Conner if you're trading to a team that wants to win now. But his involvement and his impact is limited to probably only 4 or 5 games, but it depends how much somebody needs to win and whether or not they want to make the playoffs. So maybe immensely valuable is an overstatement, but I still think there's value there with trading him to teams that need to win right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the upside here with him, like if you compare to maybe people might be a little bit scared to invest a first into someone like Cordero Patterson because of the age thing and, you know, not knowing how much further that can continue, what's his role, what Atlanta will be drafting. But comparatively, James Conner, I think, has the edge where he's not exactly a spring chicken, but I mean, in terms of running back years, but he's 26. He's still got time left. So you're not looking at someone who's on the elderly end of the running back spectrum, who is someone that you're not going to be able to get residual value out of as well. So I think that's where you can get that first out of him.
For sure. And one more thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
James Conner, this is important. A lot of running backs take, say, Devontae Booker, for example. When Saquon Barkley comes back in full capacity, Devontae Booker's relegated to a clear, just nothing but a backup role, right? And that's the case with a lot of these good running backs. Alexander Mattison goes back to nothing but a backup role when Dalvin Cook gets injured and comes back. When Chase Edmonds comes back, James Conner is still the primary goal line back on the top 2 scoring offense in the league. And you might see more and more involvement going forward because he's been so good at the goal line. So it's not like you lose all of the value. He doesn't go back to an unstartable player. He goes back to a fine flex player. But now this is going to be crazy to say, like a legitimate top 12 running back most weeks until Chase Edmonds returns.
All right, let's look. Let's look at a couple of frustrating players here. We'll bounce around what happened, especially what's going on with the Cowboys offense in Denver. Luffy hinted at the misery that was the Bills-Jags game, and get to some stretch run league winners in the final couple of weeks here of the season. So let's start most frustrating player. Terry, you want to start, Luffy, and then I'll wrap this up. We'll get back to the chat as well before we get out of here. Most frustrating player of the weekend.
Yeah. So as you guys know, I was sick over the weekend, so I might have taken a little nap towards the end of those early games. And I was very confused when I woke up and I was like, how is Dak all of a sudden a top 10 quarterback? And look down the list, and yet the wide receivers aren't. How did that happen? CeeDee Lamb, 2 of 9 for 23 yards. The Cowboys offense was an entire mess. Dak got his garbage time, and unfortunately nobody else did. Wild. Now, granted, CeeDee Lamb was injured, and I guess we can be happy that he did see 9 targets. It's not exactly like it was a game where he disappeared. It was just an awful game for the Cowboys as a whole. But yeah, I was certainly expecting more out of him.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing across the board.
Yeah, the whole Dallas was markedly better with Cooper Rush last week. Of course, that's not
absolutely
right. That's not something you want to read into. But for me, least valuable player is got to be Patrick Mahomes. It's yes, they got to win, but they won. What was it, 14-13 against the Packers? With Jordan Love was terrible. Aaron Jones was non-existent. They should have blown their doors off. So now you've got back-to-back week 1 possession wins at Arrowhead Stadium against the Rodgers-less Packers and the New York Giants. It's great, dude. They were 10.5-point favorites against the Giants, and they went to touchdown favorites against the Packers. They held them to 0 points throughout most of that game. I am really, really underwhelmed. You got to be disenchanted right now with this team, because everyone coming into this week, I bet Eytan, you and Tara both said at least, well, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, forgive me, you had to be thinking like the Chiefs can't keep being this bad.
At some point.
That's how I thought.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Mahomes had 70 passing yards at the half. I don't know what to make of them right now. You have to keep running them out. There's just no doubt about it. You're not benching Kelsey. You're not benching Hill. You're not benching Mahomes. But you better hope to the football gods that they pull this together soon, because these are the guys that you draft very, very early and will not sink your entire team, but will have huge implications if they continue to play as poorly as they have. But mostly the entire league was the most or least valuable player this week.
Here's the thing, though, and let me just respond to that with a question for both of you. I'm just curious, and look at all 3 of them, and maybe if you want to rank them in your head and answer, that's fine. But I don't think this thing, and look, I have a futures ticket invested in this that they're not going to make the playoffs, so I am admittedly biased in my presentation of phrasing. I'm leading the witness, if you will, when it comes to this question. I admit that. But I don't personally think they're going to bounce back this year. I think this is what we're getting from the Chiefs week in and week out this year. Those guys are way too talented to give up moving forward. I think right now we're at a point, and we talked about this earlier with Connor, and Tara, I'll start with you, Lofty, please. I can't wait to hear your answer on this either, but Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, are you looking at trading these guys in dynasty leagues right now?
Yeah. If someone there are people that will bite because it's Patrick Mahomes, so he does have that value that people will pay up for. Because quite frankly, I agree with you. The likelihood of them making the playoffs, I think I'm on your side on this one, because they should have lost that game. Recall the game. There were multiple missed field goals by Mason Crosby. The special teams was a complete mess, a complete nightmare. They muffed a punt. It was horrid. They literally gave the game away. Now, granted, not to take away from Kansas City, but they didn't win the game through fantastic performance by Mahomes. So again, I think this is, were this a better situation where Aaron Rodgers was in there? I don't think there's any way they could have won that game. I just don't see how they continue moving forward. I thought the offense would be able to turn it around. I didn't think the defense would. I think they just got lucky that they were able to take a very specific game plan with Jordan Love. But moving forward, I just don't feel very positively about the direction that it's heading for that offense.
I'm having a tough time figuring out what's wrong with them. Now, one of the issues is that Mahomes can't get the ball downfield. His longest completion against the Giants was a bubble screen or a screen pass to Mecole Hardman. They can't get the ball downfield. We saw him get the ball downfield with ease against the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw him do it on multiple occasions this season. I'm shocked that Andy Reid hasn't figured out a way to fix this yet. But here's my problem trading them in dynasty or in redraft. You're trading them at what you're getting in return for them right now, unless of course it's someone that just believes in grabbing them and thinking no one's buying them without feeling like they're getting a bargain. So that's my only concern. If you're trading or for Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and I really don't care to trade for quarterbacks in dynasty leagues anyway, or Travis Kelce, I would have looked to have gotten rid of him before this year, because once these tight ends get into their 30s, I think he's 31 or 32 now, that starts to see some age deterioration. With Tyreek Hill, I don't want to get rid of him. He's still electric. He's still being targeted 1,000 times per game. He'll have some off games here and there, but with Travis Kelce, sure, it's just, you have to be careful. I'm not trading them for peanuts at this point. You're still sure you'll still get like a first, maybe even 2 firsts for Tyreek. If you get 2 firsts for Tyreek Hill, I guess, but I'm not doing it for a guy that's going to be finishing, top 3 in his league each year, and then I'm getting bottom first round picks. So I'm just trying to be really careful about this. You might have to ride this one out.
That's why I asked, just curious. And I think it makes sense how you both lay it out there. A couple of questions on the chat we'll get to as well in a sec. Let me just round out here the most frustrating player on my end. And it's not so much that he didn't put up a ton of points. It's also that he didn't put up anything down consistently as they were Cincinnati taking on the Browns. Joe Burrow laying egg after egg against that Browns defense, finished with under 10 points. And again, they got lit up. 41-16 was the final. So you'd think even garbage, cheap points he could amass, nothing. And yes, foolish of me to start him, but still, the risk did not pay off. So that was my most frustrating player. All right, so let's keep it moving here. And again, a trade question I saw on the chat, I do want to get your guys' thoughts on. But before that, let's look at what happened over the weekend here. And it's the believe it or toss it element of the show that we've hit. Now, I love how we have all of these great names, too, because it just flies seamlessly. Dak Prescott, Cowboys. Tara mentioned CeeDee Lamb, most frustrating player. I don't know how sustainable that offense is, looking as shitty as they have. But let's start. And Tara, that was your guy on your frustrating element there with this Cowboys offense. I don't know how bad it can be from a sustainable standpoint, but at the same time, that was brutal to see that Cowboys offense just held to absolutely nothing.
It was. And there was literally no bright spot. I mean, when you look at it, you can't even say, well, Zeke was in 11 for 50 yards. You can't even say, okay, well, maybe, Pollard went off. No, Pollard was actually horrible as well. Amari Cooper didn't do well. We had, that garbage time with Turner that was getting the touchdown passes. We saw a little bit from Dalton Schultz, nothing very special. So, I mean, the offense as a whole was just so awful. And I can't imagine that this is something that happens regularly. Did Denver just get up for the game? Teddy Bridgewater had a fantastic game. Both the running backs looked incredible. I think maybe that's the big takeaway from this game as a whole, was just the ability to actually finally have 2 usable games with both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. But from Dallas's perspective, I'm not too worried about them. I know we had the game prior. Cooper Rush looked pretty good. It still wasn't a highly productive game for the offense as a whole, but I just can't imagine that this is not going to be something that is flipped as they move forward.
Yeah, Malik Turner is an undrafted wide receiver who in 3 years in the NFL had 17 career targets. He had 7 targets yesterday, 5 receptions and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that he had more touchdowns yesterday than he's had throughout the entirety of his 3-year career in the NFL. So that's all you need to know. It was garbage time. Ultimately, I'm not worrying about this. Now, if Cooper, you would have to assume that Dak Prescott is not actually at full strength. If that's the case, and you're saying, all right, maybe something's lingering here, then it's a concern. I have to wait and see until next game, whether or not this is a Dak Prescott issue or this was just an off day. They happen. Listen, if you're just fading every team because of one bad game, that means, after the Titans lost to the Jets, you can't go back to them. You certainly can't go back to the Bills after losing to the Jaguars. You can't go back to the Chiefs after barely edging out home wins against 2 bad teams. Well, one bad team and one without a quarterback. And then you can't go back to the Cowboys after getting smoked at home. The list goes on, right? You can't go back to the 49ers because they got crushed. There's just no way that all of that is going to continue throughout the rest of the season. But I still have no idea what teams are legitimately good and what teams are just paper tigers. So, yeah, you got to go back to Dallas. You're not going to bench CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper or Dak. You just can't do it.
And that's the biggest thing there too. And look, I think it's something similar with Buffalo, right? Where, okay, Josh Allen was not great. And Fluffy, you mentioned the first time ever that a guy sacks another guy with the same name. That's how bad things were for the Buffalo Bills offense, right? Hey, he picked him off too. Wow. You're right. Sacked him and picked him off. That will never happen.
And recovered a fumble.
All three?
Yep.
So that'll never, one of those will never happen again, let alone all three.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But here's the thing, you're not benching Josh Allen. You're not benching Stephon Diggs, right? So those two guys, I think, are the top ones that you look at here with this offense. Anybody else you want to, and again, I don't know how much you were relying on Devin Singletary in the first place. Not that he had a terrible game, right? So it's like, maybe Cole Beasley straddles that line when he's healthy and out there. But for the most part, similarly to Dallas, I would think, right? Loughran and Tera, nothing changes. It's just you chalk it up to a bad week in the middle of the season, and you don't panic with Josh Allen. You're not, even in DFS, you don't panic away from him.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, who are you going to start over? Like, what are you going to be like? Okay, well, man, it was a rough couple of games for Josh Allen, so I'm just going to start Daniel Jones over
Carson Wentz.
You can't do that.
Andre Drummond. Right.
Man.
Yeah. Got to keep. Toxic Fox says, do you think Jalen Hurts' value is going down due to the Eagles running the ball more? We covered all that at the top of the show, but short answer, yeah, I definitely do.
Well, he's coming back. I think Jalen Hurts is going to make another appearance later in the show, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so stay tuned, Toxic Fox. We will take care of you, and we appreciate the other super chat from Overcome. I don't know if Tera and Lofty are as hyped up for Jeff Wilson as our super chatter is, but whenever there's a $sign associated with a message, we'd have to think that the person sending it is serious.
Nice. I love it. I'm not, maybe not as much. I'm, if we're going to talk 49ers, I'm a little more hyped about Brandon Ayuk, but we can talk that at another point.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. So last thing here to look at, well, a couple of things. And there is a trade question with Alvin Kamara on the Saints. So we'll get to that, and that'll tie into what's going on with the Saints offense outside, of course, of the obvious one in Kamara. But Lofty, you mentioned this last night as far as the list of crazy circumstances that played out so far in Week 9. And who knows, as it's played out, the Bears will probably win by 20 tonight when it's all said and done. Stafford in the Rams offense, he didn't get much really at all. And I don't know, especially against that Titans defense, which is vulnerable, especially against the pass. But again, like, what's the area here? I have Tyler Higbee as my tight end. Am I not going to start him now moving forward? And that's probably more the middle ground scenario. If you were starting Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp is on my team each and every week, and he actually had a decent game. None of these guys change, right? Like, there's no real, maybe Van Jefferson to a lesser extent, but I don't know. What do you make of both the struggle, Lofty, from the Rams offense, and really kind of the theme that we've been talking about in this Toss It segment here, which is, okay, if you're frustrated, really what more can you do, because you're not going to bench guys?
I think based on matchup and the depth of your team and roster and how deep your league is, I think guys like Woods and Higbee are situational plays. I don't think you have to play them every week, but here's the thing. That has nothing to do with what happened last night. That's just, they're not Cooper Kupp. But Higbee was targeted 10 times, and Robert Woods has seen 25 targets over his last 3 games, and 44, I think, over his last 5 games. So his volume is becoming better, and he is someone that will be targeted in the red zone. Again, I'm not worried about that. The Tennessee Titans are a good football team. The Rams will get back to what they were doing. They have now had 2 really ugly losses this season, though, that have made you kind of question where they are in terms of strength relative to the rest of the league. But no, again, you can't worry about this stuff. But like, Higbee's a guy that we already weren't starting every week unless you had to. But that has nothing to do with how good or bad the Rams are after this last game.
Tight end or a touchdown taken off the board too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all things considered, it actually, when you consider how they played, how little they scored, the receivers actually did pretty well. Cooper Kupp was 11 of 13, 95 yards. Robert Woods was 7 of 10, 98 yards. Van Jefferson, not so good, but I'm encouraged by the number of targets that he's had over the last 3 games. The snap count is pretty high for him as well. So I think the opportunity is there for Van Jefferson. I think I'll talk about him a little bit later, but yeah, from a pass catching perspective, I think it was fine. We just lacked the touchdowns, and Stafford just really had an awful performance.
All right. Couple of quick things here. Hit that thumbs up button first and foremost, and make sure you're subscribed as we continue to build here on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We have these 2 links below for you, courtesy of Yahoo. We want to make sure you're taking full advantage of that. The first, you can claim $10, just free right there, courtesy of us at Yahoo. That's the link. You can put it to work right away. If you're new to Yahoo and you haven't signed up yet, you're still going back and forth, we keep telling you we're going to give you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum free alongside your first deposit and contest entry. And you can put that Awesemo Plus Platinum use right away across the board on anything you could find up there on Yahoo. So there was a question earlier about trading, and it involved Alvin Kamara. And I know we were talking a little bit about the Saints offense and kind of what to expect now with everybody outside of Kamara. I'll find that question here in a second, but let's just look at this. And Lofty, we can start Tera as well here. I don't know. I was disappointed. I thought I was going to get a little bit more from Trevor Siemian and that offense outside of clearly Alvin Kamara, which is built in. I don't know if it's time to panic, but at the same time, I don't feel great at all about anybody on that offense outside of Alvin Kamara moving forward.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we want a receiver to happen from here, but I just don't think any of them are coming through with the consistency that we need to. Every now and then Marquez Callaway will get a couple more receptions than usual and catch a touchdown. Traquan Smith might see a few receptions, but he's been highly inconsistent, dropping passes. The most consistent one has been Deontay Harris, which is very strange because he doesn't feel like someone that you want to roster. But he has been receiving a decent amount of targets. So I don't feel comfortable with starting any of those players unless I'm in an incredibly deep league, and then I still don't really feel comfortable. So yeah, it's really about the running game. I mean, there's probably even more opportunity for you to rely more on Mark Ingram than there is any of these receivers in this offense.
Yeah, I'll keep this quick. I don't really have much interest here at all. There was one guy I was going to mention as a waiver wire ad if you needed someone desperately at tight end, Adam Troutman. Only because Jawan Johnson got hurt. Troutman's now seen 13 targets over his last 2 games. He hasn't exactly been great with them, but this was still a day 2 draft pick, a later day 2 draft pick that they are still trying to see what they have in him. And it is interesting to think that, the 2 games where he's seen the most opportunities have been with Trevor Siemian. I don't know if Trevor Siemian's going to continue to start, but in the event that he does, Troutman might actually have some upside here. And look, they threw the ball a decent amount yesterday. They might not have the luxury of being able to sit back and run it as much as they want to, as they've done in the past. 41 pass attempts for Siemian, 29 last game. And that was only that wasn't nearly 100% of the snaps. So the only positive here could be that they're forced to throw the ball more. The reason the Saints weren't good for pass catchers before outside of Kamara is because they had such insanely low passing volume. So it's worth, trying to keep your finger on the pulse of what the Saints are doing. And if Siemian keeps throwing a ton, then it opens some things up a little bit, but there's still just like very, very underwhelming options that you would only use in deep leagues or leagues where you're desperate for a player.
Yeah, 41 times. You'd have to think how often that's going to happen again, or even how much they want that to happen again. And that definitely factors into it. Let's move to our stretch league winners here. Stretch run, pardon me, league winners here. And this is it. And Tera's going to start, so you all can explain a little bit more in depth as far as what we're doing. But we're trying to identify somebody that you either have or somebody you can get to that is going to either turn things around or be an ultimate difference maker when it comes down to it, who people have either slept on or simply forgot or maybe even discarded, depending on how you look at it. So why don't you start things off, Tera, with your first stretch run league winner here?
My first guy is a big guy, but my theory here with him is that He's kind of, I think he's is on the cusp of flipping what they had in the first half of the season, which was very heavy Mike Williams. And now we've got Keenan Allen, who has come back. I think Keenan Allen is finally back to that Keenan Allen that we know and love, that Keenan Allen that's going to get you double-digit targets, probably no touchdown because it's Keenan Allen, but we don't care because he's getting you double-digit targets and 100+ yards every single game. He's the PPR king. He's had 2 solid performances in a row. Last week, he caught 6 of 11 targets for 77 yards and 1 touchdown. And Mike Williams has kind of been fantasy irrelevant over the past several weeks. So I think we're seeing a flip. I think the back half of the season is going to be heavy on Keenan Allen, and I'm very much so looking forward to it.
I'm all about Keenan Allen. You should be as well. Just as you should be all about guys like Deontay Johnson, even if he's not in a great offense right now, because they get targeted an insane amount. Keenan Allen has 11, 13, 11, 12, and 13. Those are his target totals in 5 of 8 games this season. The other 8, 9, and 5, that game against Baltimore too, they get smoked and was never competitive. And he's going to continue to get peppered with targets. We've seen Mike Williams kind of take a back seat. He's a boom or bust player now. Keenan Allen should be the constant in that offense. I'll go to somebody that
real quick. Can I just jump in? Cause I don't
Please.
have one. So can I just jump in and follow up? Because I'm curious when you say that, and it's right. He's been relegated, Williams, to a boom or bust player right now. And it's much easier to control from a DFS standpoint. Now I happen to be loaded. I've got Cooper. I've got Debo as well here on my leagues in my league. So I don't know if other people have this luxury as well, where maybe they can look. Is it time, do you think, or has it been time, especially with Tera's look at Keenan Allen being able to take over as a stretch run league winner? Should I be shopping Mike Williams?
Should have been. Yeah.
So the value is gone.
Yeah. Might be a little late.
Yeah.
He had 58 yards on Sunday. Come on, Tera.
2
receptions. The Eagles defense, though.
It's true, but when he was at the beginning of the season, yeah.
Much different.
I think that was it. Yeah.
I think Lofty told me week 2 not to sell.
I did?
No.
No.
I was going to say, I certainly don't remember that.
All right, brother. Who's yours?
But no, if you can get something for him, but that's the problem with these guys. Like, you think about it like maybe some of you are in the crypto or stocks, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You never want to sell at the top, right? Because you don't know what the top is, and you can't predict the top with guys like Mike Williams. And it's really hard to predict the bottom too. It's the same thing. You're speculating on what's going to be the top, what's going to be their ceiling, what's going to be their yearly floor, and you're trying to make a good decision. You might hold them and they remain consistent throughout the year, or they get better or they get worse. Or you sell them like Cooper Kupp, thinking after 4 weeks, there's no way he can keep doing this. And look what he's doing. He's still continuing. With Mike Williams, obviously, if you were to have gotten, and I don't even suggest this because I think he's really good, but he had a huge target share. He had a 25% target share through the first 5 weeks, and now it's down significantly. So it's just, you take those chances, Eytan, and I don't blame you for it whatsoever. But this is one of those spots where, you hit the top and now you're seeing a pretty big pullback and not many people are interested. That's all.
I'm stuck with a digital rock that I can't sell. That's what you're telling me. Exactly. Who's yours?
George Kittle.
Okay.
I think it's crazy how many people have just written George Kittle off as, somebody that he's no longer going to be consistent or good in this offense. I understand Deebo Samuel's very good. Don't get me wrong, but Kittle, don't forget, like before he went on the IR, he was getting peppered with targets. He just hadn't found the end zone yet. Found it yesterday. He can make huge plays downfield. Okay. He's amazing after the catch. He had 6 for $101 and 101 yards and a touchdown. And I still think people are going to be looking at Kittle like it was fluky. This is one of those spots where, if you traded for Kittle right before he came off the IR, you probably got him at an amazing price. But again, you're trying to predict which of these players are going to be, are going to have a resurgence or are going to struggle. I'm all in on Kittle going forward. The tight end position sucks right now, man. Like Waller has fallen off significantly since the first few weeks. Travis Kelce has fallen off a lot. Who can you like? TJ Hawkinson after the first 2 weeks has been modest at best. There are no tight ends out there week to week. Kyle Pitts, a huge just let down last week. There's no one out there that's just electric right now week to week. So Kittle's, if you look at Kittle as like a step down from these guys up top right now, I think you'd be looking at it wrong. I think Kittle's up there with the best of them because who the hell else has been consistent every week over the past month?
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, unless you're going to go super low like Dan Arnold, you're right. I mean,
he's been good, but it's still in the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Absolutely, you know? That's why I was just saying that. Absolutely, you have now. I wanted to hit Tera's here before we go back to the waiver wire and kind of end. There is Russell Wilson information we're going to have to hit on, but I saw this on the sheet and I was thinking, all right, I can't wait to get to this because I think there's such a fascinating conversation about your other stretch league winner here, Tera, in this quarterback.
Yeah, it's Carson Wentz. I think we get kind of fooled by our perception of him, what we've seen in the past, by unfortunately those games where he has some unfortunate endings towards the end and makes some mistakes that, aren't fantastic for Indianapolis, but they're not really that bad from us from a fantasy perspective. Carson Wentz has been great from a fantasy perspective. He is a QB1. I know that's hard to believe. I know it's hard to, think, hey, so many people thought that this was it. He was washed off. This was a bad trade. It has worked out so well for Indianapolis. This week, he had 3 touchdowns, 272 yards, 22 of 30. He's doing it when he's throwing for high volume. He's doing it when he's throwing for low volume. He's just getting the job done from a fantasy perspective. So I think we need to open up our eyes and stop looking at Carson Wentz as somebody who we're like, oh, do we want to pick him up off waivers? No, I think he's somebody who we can sit here and we can roster and we can feel comfortable with it, especially when we've got several quarterbacks who are suffering through injuries or going through some struggles of their own.
Lofty's deep in thought on Carson.
No.
I thought you were going to okay.
No, we're good.
Okay, that's fine. Let's keep it moving. Go ahead.
I do think Saquon Barkley could be a league winner, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I wasn't sure.
If he, who knows if he stays healthy, but you're going to get him at a discount right now, especially like if someone needs a receiver or they need another position and you're looking to grab him. Remember, Devontae Booker is getting legitimate bell cow status workload right now, and he's nowhere near as good as Saquon Barkley. Listen to the upcoming schedule that this team has, right? The New York Giants have the Eagles twice, okay? Mm-hmm. They have the LA Chargers, whose run defense is pitiful. They have, of course, the Bucs. That's a rough one, but trade for Barkley after he plays the Bucs. How about that? Because he'll be back. They have the Dolphins. So Eagles, Dolphins, Chargers, Cowboys, Eagles, Bears, Washington, most games that should stay remotely competitive. Yeah, I think Barkley could be one of those guys that you're getting pretty absurd volume from. Devontae Booker's snap counts have been through the roof, and Saquon Barkley is going to see the same once he's back to full strength.
Yeah, it's a great point. 17-3, by the way, TD to pick ratio for Wentz. Wow.
Yeah, but those interceptions are shit. I mean, each one of those interceptions should count as 7. That's all I'm saying. They're
in dog years.
But he has been good. He has been good for sure.
It's amazing when you're not throwing to a converted college quarterback as your wide receiver 1. It's
right. No, instead you're throwing to the opposing team's nose tackle.
Well, yes.
I'm just kidding. He's been good.
Honestly, that awful pick saved the safety, and at least they had a shot in that game. Nobody wants to talk about that because it's just easy to pile on Carson, and I get it. I've piled on myself.
It saved the safety, but they scored a touchdown.
Well, I know, but they got the ball back. It was full Madden mode. Sorry, Tera.
No, I see. I think didn't Mike Wright or Frank Wright apologize, saying that was his fault, that it was just bad play calling. He shouldn't have done it. Put Carson Wentz in a bad position.
Right.
Yeah. I tell my wife I'm sorry when I don't actually think it's my fault too.
That's true.
Lofty will remember this. There was a Ronnie Brown run pass option when he was here with the Eagles, where he just decided for some reason on the goal line to stop running the ball and throw it. It got picked off. I think it was even a pick 6. That I thought was the worst interception I've ever seen before in my life. I think Wentz took the cake on that one.
The Vince Young dream team, sure.
Well, yes, exactly right. All right, let's look at a couple of waiver wire picks here on the way out. And again, hit that thumbs up button. Please make sure you're subscribed. Take advantage. We have 2 links for you below, courtesy of Yahoo. $10 free just to play with. And then if you sign up and you're still new to Yahoo, we're going to give you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So let's hit the waiver wire here. Lofty, you want to kick things off. And again, we're just trying to find individuals that you can take full advantage of heading into not only this coming week, but really the next stretch of a couple of weeks, especially with buys still in play here.
Yeah, I think if you're in need of running backs, and James Conner's owned in most leagues anyway. A lot of these running backs are already. Adrian Peterson did not look particularly good. Jeremy McNichols' role, I think, is suspect at best. I don't have an issue with that though. If you wanted to look towards McNichols and nobody's picked him up yet, and I already mentioned Troutman as a deep flyer. I do think though that Jordan Howard, assuming that Miles Sanders misses maybe another 2 weeks, and I hate to make this an Eagles centric show, but they're just such a strange team right now because they're the one team in the league that is completely, they have completely redefined how they're playing offense. Okay. And it's nuts. It's nuts. They're entirely different team over the past 2 weeks than they have been on the season. So Jordan Howard had 17 carries last game, played 40% of snaps, but snap counts are kind of unimportant if you're someone that's going to be out there largely on running plays. And now he's had what? He had, where is this? I couldn't find it. Yeah, 29 carries and 3 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 games. You want to take a look at their schedule? Whew, they got a good schedule coming up as well. So you have the Broncos. That's whatever. It's not great. But then in the Saints, those are 2 spots I'm not in love with. So if Miles Sanders remains out, because it seems serious, Giants, Jets, Washington, Giants, he's someone that I would stash right now and just keep there if you have the extra bench space. But a lot of the other guys are already pretty heavily owned across these leagues at running back. He's someone I would pick up and just hope they continue to run the football.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I know it's not interesting to pick up Jordan Howard. I know It's not something that you truly want to do. But I mean, with the attempts that are there, his snap count rose from last week as well significantly. I think he was right there with Boston Scott now, pretty even. So things are trending in the right direction. They clearly love Jordan Howard. So yeah, I completly agree with you.
And even in tough matchups against good defenses in Denver and New Orleans, the one thing that stands out to me is that neither New Orleans or Denver have great offenses right now. And if that's the case, the Eagles probably, and I don't want to speculate on Nick Sirianni, but if they continue doing what they're doing, because even yesterday, the Chargers, did they punt once? I mean, maybe once.
No, they didn't punt.
They didn't punt once. Oh, because they kept going for it on 4th down.
Correct. They missed the
Bailey's such a great coach, man. He made all of the right moves yesterday. Really, really did. But if you're not in a big deficit and it's like Trevor Siemian or Teddy Bridgewater starting against you, they might just continue to run, and maybe that offensive line has the advantage. I don't think it's out of the question. So yeah, that's where I got.
Yeah, and on that same vein, I would look, if you're ever in the business of streaming a quarterback week to week, look at who the Eagles are playing.
Yep.
Because 5 times this year, a quarterback is thrown for 75% or more from a completion standpoint. They're just begging you to throw them, and they're allowing you. They're inviting you to sit down. They're giving you the nice seat and everything, the great service. Here, throw the football. Go ahead, throw the football. All right, we have to get to the.
They're dead last in completion percentage allowed to opponents this year. It's 75.5%. It's 3% higher than the next worst team, and that's the Jaguars.
Lofty, it's higher than Drew Brees when he set the record for single season completion percentage. That's how bad it is.
It's not even like they give up a ton of long touchdowns for the most part.
No.
It's just, they can't stop you on 3rd down. So I'm with you there.
Tara hates the Eagles at this point. Enough of the Eagles. All right,
no, I think it's super relevant for fantasy.
No, it is. I'm just busted. Yeah. And look, they have from a lot of look, Jalen Hurts as well. So let's look at this. Let's close on Russell Wilson. I'll throw out Donovan Peoples-Jones. I just throw this out here because he's super low rostered, and clearly there is a void that was. It was almost like Kevin Stefanski went out of his way to make sure they were throwing the football to spite Beckham Jr. Tara, why don't you hit us with a couple of waiver wire pickups, and then we'll close out talking about Russell Wilson and really moving forward.
Yeah, real quick one. If you're a league that doesn't have IR spots, maybe someone did not stash Logan Thomas, and maybe you can go out and grab him. He's around 50% rostered on Yahoo, so he's out there. Obviously, the tight ends in Washington are just on the field 100% of the time, so he'll be someone who is very usable rest of season. And then Van Jefferson, I talked about him earlier. It wasn't really a good day for Van Jefferson, but it wasn't a good day for the Rams as a whole. But the targets, again, his snap count, it's setting up really well for him rest of season. So he's somebody that I want to be stashing moving forward.
Awesome. All right, let's look at the news. Russell Wilson looking to be back. Saw somebody on the chat even ask if they should start Russ over Dak. Now, clearly, if you have Russell Wilson and you've been scraping off the waiver wire, this is a moment here where you can reinsert him, I would imagine, starting there. But let's just look at everybody else. I mean, my goodness, everybody's value, I would think, goes back up. Even the running game to an extent, because now you're in football games and you don't have to worry about being down 20 points.
This is if you're starting, was it Dak or Russ was the
yeah, question? That was a question we saw in the chat.
All right. So they've got the Packers in Green Bay, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Who do the Cowboys have this week?
Atlanta, I believe, right?
I'm going Dak.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're laying 8.5. It opened at 9.5, so it's been bet down a little bit.
That's okay. I'm going with the Cowboys here. I have to. Listen, or with Dak. You got a 30-point implied total right now. They're going to score points. I have no issues with Russell Wilson, but if it's Russ or Dak, I still want Dak. The only question is, like, do the Cowboys just run the ball down their throat? But ultimately, I'm okay with that. The spread too on the Green Bay game, Packers laying 4.5 at home. That we know Russ is expected back, and that line suggests just as much. So fine with either of them. I really am. I'll go Dak here just because they have the higher implied total, and sometimes you just have to do that. But yeah, Lockett and Metcalf, get them back in your starting lineups this week.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd definitely be going Dak, better matchup. Green Bay's secondary has actually been performing decently well. They're young right now. They're missing Jair Alexander, but they've been holding up okay in his absence. So I do think I would gear more towards the team playing Atlanta.
Yeah, they are getting 4.5 on the road. I guess the implication is that Rodgers could be back as well, but don't you want to jump on that before Russell Wilson gets cleared to play? That's going to drop significantly, don't you think?
No. You think the Packers are going to be less than 4.5 at home?
If there's no word on Rodgers and there's word on Russ, then I think it moves. Then I think the Packers lose value. If Rodgers gets cleared and Russ gets cleared, it probably stays the same.
So here's the thing, though. The Seattle Seahawks offense actually wasn't performing that great before Russell Wilson went out. I don't know. I think
maybe we go under. With your point about the offense and Tera's point about Green Bay's secondary, maybe we all go under 49.5.
That could definitely be a spot to hit. I mean, assuming this, see, to me at least, this line suggests Rodgers is back and Wilson is playing. Maybe I'm wrong. That's what, to me, I'm seeing.
Look, you've been right a lot. So
I'm wrong quite often as well. I'm just saying,
we don't have your record yet. So
I think 4.5 at home seems pretty reasonable if Rodgers is active because he's good.
Thanks for everybody riding with us here. Leave us a thumbs up, please, if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed. Take advantage. The 2 links are below. The Yahoo link, $10 free. And then also, if you haven't signed up already, do so with a first deposit paid contest entry. We're going to get you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We're back on Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern. Until then, make sure you're following along on Twitter at Lofty_D, at It's Tera Time, at Shander Show for me. Thanks to Chris for producing Yahoo as well. Have a great week.